I was always just a radio junkie, you know, growing up. I mean, I grew up in the golden age of top 40 radio. They used to have these really small transistor radios that, in fact, back, I remember when I was a kid, they looked like little satellites, little space things, and they were Japanese, you know, and you plug the earphone in, and at night, you know, when I'd go to bed, my parents thought I'd be asleep. I'd have the earphone, the plug in my ear, listening to music till probably I fell asleep. So I've always been, you know, kind of hooked on it. I grew up in Los Angeles and went to school there, got my undergraduate degree in Santa Barbara. There was a college station, and oddly enough, I didn't start working there till after I graduated. They gave me an air shift, and of course I sounded horrible. I think I have a tape of, if not my first, one of my first, and it's just, you know, it's so embarrassing to listen to. By the time I got to Austin, I'd been doing radio for almost 4 years. I arrived at night, and the next morning I came to KUT with my cassette air check. I got my toe in the door, and in the early 80s, they wanted a jazz show on Friday nights. Got the show the first Friday night in February 1985. I came up, it had snowed. I had to park my car at Lamar and 24th Street and walk up with 2 armloads of Miles Davis LPs and spent a cold winter night doing my first jazz, etc. In regards to Studio 1A, a couple of performances really come to mind. The True Believers came in like 1985, and with, you know, Alejandro Escovedo and John D. Graham, and they just kind of blew the walls out. And then just sitting one-on-one with Alan Toussaint was pretty remarkable. He didn't want to really play so much. I mean, he would play, but you know, first we had a talk for a really long time, and then he did a tune. So I asked what his favorite song was that he's ever written. His favorite, or the one that meant most to him, was Southern Nights, and he went into this like elaborate story about Southern Nights and what it meant to him as a child, that he'd go out in the country and you know, in the warm Southern nights and with the wind blowing through the tree. And then he kind of, so it was almost begging the question. I said, well, can you play it for us? For a split second, he shot me this glance of, it was a mixture of being surprised and then being almost, how dare, you know, and then within a split second, he kind of softened up and said, sure.
Well, I can play some of it.
Southern night, have you ever felt a southern night? Free as a breeze, not to mention the trees, whistling tunes that you know and love so.
It practically had me in tears when I was sitting there, and it was really, that was just a real special moment I'll always remember. Well, in terms of the new building, if nothing else, it's symbolic of the evolution of KUT, of just kind of moving uptown a little bit and making us more visible, literally more visible, and figuratively more visible, and just more integrated into the community, especially with people being able to come into 1A all the time now. Of course, we're down in the dungeon here. When we move in the new building, 1A will be like a public space practically. So, I mean, that's exciting. It's a little scary, but it's exciting as well. It's KUT Austin 90.5 and KUT.org. I'm Jay Trachtenberg, and I'm proud to be a part of KUT.